Here's the podcast script. The New York Times is asking a provocative question. Is it time for a new sexual revolution, one that actually brings men and women together? That's the headline from Ross Douthat's Interesting Times column and podcast, where he sat down with Louise Perry, a columnist for the Wall Street Journal and author of The Case Against the Sexual Revolution. And their conversation cuts right to the heart of something that's hard to ignore. Men and women in the West seem increasingly alienated from each other, and that divide is reshaping both our politics and our culture. Perry's argument starts with something that sounds almost obvious: men and women are different. Physically, yes, but also psychologically, at least on average. She points out that men tend to have a stronger drive toward casual sex and multiple partners, while women disproportionately bear the costs when sexual relationships go wrong. Unwanted pregnancies, sexual violence, physical vulnerability, these fall harder on women. So when a culture normalizes casual sex as the default, Perry argues, it ends up benefiting men more than women, even if that's not the intention. Now, Perry is careful to say she's not rejecting the sexual revolution wholesale. She calls herself a beneficiary of it. But her case against it centers on the pill, not just as a social symbol, but as a material revolution. For the first time, women could be, in her words, walking around temporarily sterile, and that invisibly reshaped what society expected of them, sexually and economically. That economic piece is where the conversation gets really interesting. Perry draws on Elizabeth Warren's old book, The Two-Income Trap, to make a counterintuitive point. When two incomes became the norm for families, it didn't just expand women's choices, it quietly narrowed them. If you're competing for housing against households with two paychecks, and one partner stops earning to have a baby, you're suddenly at a serious disadvantage. A system that looked like liberation built in a new kind of fragility. Douthat pushes back gently, tracing the history, how the sexual revolution of the late 1950s and 60s was, in many ways, male-driven. Hugh Hefner. Playboy. The Playboy philosophy. And how feminism quickly rose as a reaction, zeroing in on sexual violence and the real dangers women faced in that new landscape. It's a conversation without easy answers, but it's asking the right question. If the last sexual revolution reset relations between the sexes in ways that didn't serve everyone equally, what would a better one actually look like? That's the story, and it's one worth sitting with. Runtime estimate, approximately 3.5 to 4 minutes at a natural speaking pace.